Welcome, welcome, and thank you for being here this evening. We're going to go ahead and get started. We want to say thank you. Um, and hopefully, you'll join us in some comments and leave some questions, and that tonight's session will be very uplifting for you. Um, and that you'll find some solace in the journey of wherever you are right now in your journey. So I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak life, to speak, have real talk about real experiences and about real hope. Listen, let me just be real honest with you. I just did a quick video on Instagram as we're giving people an opportunity to come in. And as always, people come back later and look at the videos at our show. But let me just be honest. I'm not too clear there, huh? Let me just be honest. I didn't feel like it tonight. Today has been a day. And this week has been a week. Like in tears week. Like what in the whole hell of Jesus going on kind of week. But I'm here. I am committed to walking through the journey and remaining in that space of transparency so that you also get an opportunity to see that there's a reason why we do grief and loss. There's a reason why we do caregiving. There's a reason why the mandate, the call on my life, the mission, the purpose on my life has been about sharing the raw deal of our journey. Social media has us a little duped with the fact that everything looks so glamorous and so easy, and everybody is living this large life. And I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, a good thing. That's not what I'm saying. However, there's another side to that. And I promise you that whatever is being shown in the media as okay, the backdrop, there is something that is going on. There's a price that's been paid. There's some shedding away that's had to happen. There is some difficulties that has to be faced with self and with the world around. And we're living in pivotal times right now. I don't even like to call it critical as much as pivotal because we have an opportunity to make some valuable choices that will either shift us in a direction of wholeness, healed, for ourselves and for the generations to come after us, or we will remain stuck and repeating the same cycles. In when you look at history, and I'm just giving hopefully I didn't send out text messages, but it is what it is. Whoever's to hear this is going to hear it. How about that? And we're going to bring the guest on. But if you look at history and you look at the 1900s, the 1800s, the 1700s, that first 25, 30 years was always a major transition in the earth, in the world, in society, in how we operate. And that's what we're in right now, whether we like it or not. And most of us don't, because I don't. But that's what we're in right now. So with all of that said, I'm going to take, I'm going to go ahead and introduce before because she's a breath coach as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce and bring our special guest on tonight. And I want to say, hey, Tracy, hey, let's unmute you. Hi there.
Hello. Good to be here.
Yes, it's good to have you back again on the platform. You were able to come on with when we had a couple of women on together with Dr. Jewel and Natalie, and you was there when I was I shared with them last week when I had Natalie on. We had this awesome session. I got to the end to end it, and it was like, oh my God, I didn't even hit live. I didn't even hit record. But it's, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for taking the time out of your journey, and thank you for being here. What we're going to do, what I'm going to ask that you do, and I'm going to ask you to do it because I don't know what this is right here in my chest, but I have a catch, a pain And I'm not going to pretend like I don't have it. I have been accustomed. So this is going to be a real conversation tonight. I have been accustomed, and perhaps some of you have too, of pushing and going, and pretending like things are not happening in our body, and we ignore it. Yes, yes, we ignore it. And our body is giving us signals that there are pockets that we are holding pain, we're holding worry, we're holding concern, we're holding grief, we're holding sadness, and whatever that is, or we're just holding trauma,
Mhm.
the trauma of life, the
Mhm.
things that come up. And we have, and what I know for certain, Tracy, is as we grow and as we are experiencing this journey, we are offered the opportunity to shed or to release. How about we use the word release
Mhm.
what is no longer serving us,
Mhm.
those that we serve. So I'm going to ask you take us through. I normally do the breathing, but I'm going to let Tracy do it tonight. We're going to take a few breaths before we get started. And I see that we have some. Make sure you put your name in the chat. Make sure you put your name in the chat, or just let us know where you're checking in from. We'll greatly appreciate it. Okay, Tracy, go ahead.
I
Go
love
ahead.
that. Yeah, I know. I was going to message you and say, "Did you press record?" Right? Just for a little levity, right? Just for a little levity. Yeah. So I'd love to just invite everyone to begin by noticing the support that's below you and bringing some awareness into this next breath as it goes into the body. Where it goes, how it goes, does it catch? Is there a texture? We're not trying to change it just yet, but just noticing the quality of your breath right now. And then coming back to the seat, seeing if you can allow yourself to be supported just a little bit more right now. Is there anywhere in your body still trying to be up that could let the chair or the support below you do a little bit deeper job, taking some breaths in, pulling that breath in, and on the exhale, letting that support do a little more of the work, letting your body be held in this moment, letting the energy of Mother Earth come in through the structure that is below you, supporting you, allowing you. Continuing to take this breath in and maybe noticing a point of tension in the body right now. Iris, you mentioned right here in the chest, but just encouraging you, find this place. Maybe you've got some tension somewhere in the body. And on this next inhale in, however you might do this, I want to encourage you to let that spread out so more of your body can hold it with you. So maybe that goes out to the sides, wherever this tension is. Maybe it goes up or down. Maybe you give some of it to a lower part of the body or a higher part of the body, staying connected to the breath, ins and outs, ins and outs. Letting that spread out so structurally more of your body can hold this with you. More of your body holding whatever this tension is, whatever emotion it might represent. And then if you'd like to, allowing this support from below, this breath coming through, more of your body structurally holding this. And maybe you want to bring the hands in and let them go wherever they are needed as well. Not to soothe right now. That's a lovely thing. But what we're working with is the capacity to hold what's here. We don't want to soothe it away or push it away. We're going to let those hands go where they are needed as encouragement. It's like scaffolding on the outside of this structure, holding the intensity that your body has experienced. Taking another deep breath in and maybe letting that breath meet where those hands are or the support below you. Getting more of your body involved in spreading out this experience. And maybe making a declaration here. I am supported in this. I am held in this moment. This is a lot for my body, and I don't have to do it alone. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And just taking a few more breaths here, connecting in, seeing where that breath goes, noticing the qualities in your body. We didn't move away from anything, but we created more space for it. And that's our body. That's what our body needs more than anything. Mm-hmm.
Ashe, yes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Tracy. That was
Mm-hmm.
good. That was
Mm-hmm.
good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I needed that. I needed that. I needed that just to be present with where you are right now, not trying
Mm-hmm.
to run away from it. With that, Tracy, that's a perfect walk in, a
Mm-hmm.
perfect walk in to how and why did you get started in this journey?
Well, I say I was volunforced, right? I was forced by experience, but I volunteered because somehow, some way, I had a capacity in my system for it, which I believe my soul, my spirit came here with. And it was sharpened and honed and shaped by those difficult experiences that kind of forced me to reckon with what is grief, what is gratitude, what is loss, what is joy, all of these different components of our human condition. And I believe we all come here with special gifts. We all have a unique expression of love. And part of mine is the witnessing, the bearing witness, and the capacity to hold deep, reverent, sacred space for what isn't really modeled or taught or offered much in this society. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So I get that. But
Mm-hmm.
what was the thing that pulled you in, the situation, the circumstance, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll get
The
into
life is
the
yeah,
deep
the life
personal.
instance. Yeah.
Yeah. So many things, difficult upbringing, early, too young kind of marriage, that breaking, abusive relationship, and then the repercussions of all those things, the consequences and patterns that worked in my system. And then the big catalyst was my son suffering in his teenage years and feeling like I couldn't ask him to live well. I couldn't ask him to heal. I couldn't ask him to stay here if I wasn't modeling well living for him. And so choosing to transform and change my life. And then as a result of that, right, getting involved in grief work, I had lost a lot of people in my life. And then when I got the news that my father had 3 to 5 months left to live, I really deepened into my grief work. And then I lost him and then my best friend 5 months apart. And I realized in those processes that grief was actually trying to steward me through the despair and the sorrow. And I see grief as a gift from death and loss that are just a part of our human cycle, right? There's a life cycle, a death cycle, and it cannot be avoided in this go round. And I saw grief in those experiences stewarding me as a gift from the inevitable. And if I could just relate differently to my grief and see it as a gift, it opened up the capacity to really experience love on a deeper level, vitality on a deeper level, and also the mourning. All right, to go deeper into grief, let me go deeper into the losses. And a lot of great teachers along the way have said, right, that the medicine is near the poison or the remedy is near the wound. And so getting really really close in these losses, the relationship with my father was not by any way to describe it a good one. But my best friend was the polar opposite of that experience with a man, and reckoning with what I was walking with and through in the process.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That was good. Yes. And so I thank you for sharing that and allowing yourself to share that, because I know that there are people that will be listening. That's the beauty of this work.
Mhm.
No one gets into grief and loss work and trauma work because
Because
that's
it sounds fun, right? Because it sounds like such a fun time, right? Oh, yeah.
no.
Mhm.
No, not at all. This
Mhm.
is a work that definitely pulls you in because, thank you, Francine, pulls you in because of experiences. And the world we are in is experiencing a lot of grief and loss on
Mhm.
different levels. I know one of the things that we talked about is there are different, I forget the young lady's name now, but different stages of grief or different forms of grief.
Mhm.
And oftentimes we, of course, are we understand the grief of a loved one
Mhm.
departing,
Mhm.
or a frenemy departing,
Mhm.
or we understand that grief. But when
Mhm.
it comes to the grieving process, now you compact that with relationship loss,
Right.
career loss, and
Right.
all of that. What do you say to that?
Well, I think, and there's so many layers to this, right? Especially with traumatic experience, there's layers of like the conditions of our environment, um, what is deemed acceptable in society or in our communities and small groups, or families. There is the attachment styles and how we process through anything at all. Right? There's so much to this, but really, what we're seeing so much of right now is a lot of there's two different well, there's three categories. So Francis Weller has a body of work that says there's 5 gates of grief. Really important work, really beautiful. But to go on from there, I think there's 6, 7 gates of grief. But there's also the ones that we're experiencing right now, which I have learned as disenfranchised grief, ambiguous loss, and suffocated grief.
Mm.
And this suffocated grief has been experienced by marginalized bodies as long as they have been marginalized. But we are experiencing it on a mass level right now, where there is a punishment or a backlash or um, a like more challenge, more negativity as a result of our expression of grief.
Mhm.
That and again, this is not new to any marginalized bodies, but it is new as a whole to society, where your grief is not only unacceptable, which would be like disenfranchised grief, but the suffocated is where you are penalized, punished, ostracized, not allowed a grieving process. And with so much going on in our societies, a lot of people are experiencing now this suffocated grief. Yeah.
So, how do you um, reckon with suffocated grief
Mhm. Mhm.
in marginalized communities? And how have you been able to integrate indigenous uh,
Mhm.
processing?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I'd like to give credit to Dr. Tichelle Bourdier for the concept of suffocated grief. It's definitely not mine. And what I what I my efforts are to walk alongside someone in the way that they feel loved, the way they feel allied with, the way they feel a comrade in me, not how I think I show up in those ways. And so, as far as indigenous learnings, I don't claim any, knowledge or information as far as that is concerned. But I do sit with indigenous and original teachings and allow those to inform and steward how I show up in the world, how I process in my own way, in my own experience, without an extractive presence, and then applying that in ways that is supportive to the person, not how I think it's supportive.
Okay, so this is good. So Tracy, we're
Mhm.
gonna have a real talk here
Mhm.
because I'm feeling led to do this. Okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
if you, yes. So how do you, as a woman that is not considered marginalized,
Mhm.
sit with suffocated, marginalized grief?
Yeah. And do you mean like with others specifically? Yeah.
With others specifically, and because let me say this: one of the things I know as a counselor and going through um, my counseling program and working in the world that I worked in, and having some counselors and therapists myself,
Mhm.
one of the challenges that happens is the inability to truly sit with
Mhm.
um, what's going on, but
Yeah.
and thinking and offering solutions that are not not effective or real in the context of what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I can give some specific examples. So first and foremost is my commitment to my own work, right? And as a woman, I know what it is like to experience marginalization on that level, but that doesn't give me any access to understanding marginalization on any other level. Um, I do my own work as a white woman with white bodies, right? And I process through what might come into my system uh, that either I am under practiced with or under like not familiar with or whatever. Like I work with that material so that that's not blown through other people. I am committed to many spaces of like social and transformative justice where I show up and I learn and I sit down and I be quiet. And then in experiences with like in my profession as a somatic practitioner, first and foremost, I name the obvious thing in the room is that I'm going to be under equipped in some ways to help certain bodies if I haven't had their experience. It doesn't mean that I can't help, it doesn't mean that I can't offer compassion,
Excuse
it
me.
doesn't mean that I can't support, and I might fumble the ball along the way, right?
Mhm.
Um right now what I am experiencing the most of is is marginalized bodies being really glad that like we'll take, we'll just use they'll say like I'm really glad white people are showing up, but I can't tolerate holding your outrage because I've been dealing with this my whole life.
Mhm.
And my what I feel like my role is in that is I kind of feel this energy of like firm but open, where it's my responsibility to hold whatever it is that comes up and not add to the labor they have to do.
Hmm.
So, for example, I work with someone who is from another country, and their entire life has felt like they have a target on them. Now we're seeing it in real time that people are being targeted, and all of the sudden their white peers are in an outrage over it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And they are reckoning with, how do I tell them lovingly, sweetly, I'm so glad you're doing this work, but don't bring it to me.
Mhm.
Right. And so in working with individuals like that, right, it's working with my nervous system enough that I can lend mine so they can work with their nervous system without having to caretake for me, because I
Mhm.
might take it the wrong way, or I might be hurt by it, or it might offend me. I'm like, cut all that. I'll take care of me. I appreciate the reciprocal care, but this is about a responsibility to showing up and working with this material differently. I, I'm not fragile. I'm not going to pretend I'm fragile.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
To
Thank you.
get out
Thank
of
you.
the discomfort. So I don't know if that answers your question specifically,
Well,
but
it did answer the
Mhm.
question, and it walks us right into the somatic practitioner. It
Mhm.
definitely answers the question because one of the things that often happens, and I am finding, and I am making. So this platform, Center of Empowerment, is our nonprofit, not-for-profit platform where we offer our mental health services and our support groups and our for the
Mhm.
caregivers and for grief and loss. And so that's specifically what we do in this world, and we do it for anybody that's in need.
Mhm.
However, what I know for certain that there are things that are going on right now that is, well, it has been going on, but right now we're in a situation that's it's pivotal in how we handle this moment. How we, we talk about allies and partnering and all of that, but it's really important how we handle this moment,
Mhm.
and acknowledging um, the differences as well as the sameness, right?
Mhm.
And so you absolutely answered the question, and I think that's why you are here right now and you're up for the challenge. I think it's a conversation that's well needed in this world
Mhm.
of healing, in
Mhm.
this world of grief and loss, and mental health, and it's needed because it's a conversation that oftentimes gets I have experienced
Mhm.
personally, even on an educational standpoint, a lot of fragility. It's
Mhm.
like we want to do it, but then when you get called on the carpet, oh my God, like what in the whole ham and cheese just happened here? Did we just flip the script? No.
Right, 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 right,
So
right.
yeah. So with that said, when we talk about a somatic practitioner, exactly what
Mhm.
is that?
So soma means body. Real quick, I do want to also say that one other piece is, even if I'm not entirely sure, I lean heavily on where my like ethical and moral edges are.
Mm-hmm.
And when it is time for me to maybe refer someone to a better fit or a different type of support than I can offer. I also want to like that there is that's a piece of right understand, like it's not so much about like staying in your lane, but it's like understanding that
Mm-hmm.
part of our responsibility is reconciling our edges, just like we would if it's not something that we are educated in or we don't have some level of expertise in.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing goes with how we are identified and located in the world. So I want to just name that piece too. I think practitioners need to be better at recognizing that they maybe aren't the fit for the particular
Mm-hmm.
circumstances as well. So,
And,
so
and in that case, let me just add to that. There's no amount of
Mhm.
broaching. There's no amount of whatever we think we can do to sit in certain situations. It
Mhm.
just as a practitioner, as a therapist, as a counselor, as a healer, we don't get to choose who we heal or who we're in the space with for healing,
Mhm.
but we have to also recognize the
Mhm.
limitations that we have.
Absolutely.
We
Absolutely.
rely on guidance,
Mhm.
rely on technique and all that, but heavily on guidance. But you got to know what your limitations are. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it's really an important piece for people to take into account. And not many people in a therapeutic air
Mhm,
quotes space do
mhm,
that because it's
mhm,
about their ego.
mhm,
Um, so soma means body, and somatic practice is a modality of healing, nervous system regulation, understanding the patterns in the body and what's happening on a deeper level in the body as a result of our experiences and what happens to us. Somatic practice is defined in a lot of different ways, but one that I love is the remembering of our body's wholeness, regardless of what has happened to us, like as an organism. That per the evidence of our skin's intactness, that we are in fact whole.
mhm.
And somatic healing, or healing at all, I think could be defined, and I've heard it said as, it is the ability to be in similar situations without having the same traumatic responses.
I like that. Yeah, that's a
That
good.
does not mean we're tolerating nonsense or we're bypassing or any of those things, but structurally having a deeper capacity, not just to tolerate a situation, but to have a well system in the process, as well as one can be in a very sick society. I'll say that piece though.
Mhm, mhm. So, how do you know when you have moved and moved into a healing, your physical, your soul, your spirit is healing. How do you know that?
Yeah. Um, well, I'll tell you the way that we know, like through somatic experiencing as a model, they're called like a deeper well of energy or capacity or resilience in the body. Might be, again, like being able to tolerate a different level of experience emotionally. So where we have this very tight, contracted experience when we think, oh my gosh, I don't want to go into grief, and our whole body tightens. I don't want to feel
Mhm.
grief. I don't want to think about grief. Over time, that somatic healing looks like, okay, I don't have to go. I'm still here, but maybe my shoulders drop,
Mhm.
right? And then it goes the next time we drop into a deeper well, okay, I can put my hands down, but my chest is still going to be tight, right? And then the next experience is, and so for me, this has looked like in my own personal sessions where, let's say I was working, I've been working the past couple of years on the grief um, of birthing my son in a way where there was no sacredness to it. It was very medical, it was very sterile. I didn't know, I was so young, nobody taught me, right? I didn't have the aunties take me in and tell me what's gonna happen. I was leaning on a parent that was, there's a difference in having a mother and feeling mothered kind of a
Mhm.
situation.
Mhm.
Um, and and working the very specific nuanced piece of the loss of the placenta that gave my son his life inside of
Mhm.
me, right? And to feel it discarded in such a way and considered medical trash or waste, when it was this very sacred part of my body that was, it took that and me and my son to bring him into this world. And there
Mhm.
was such a deep grief and loss over that, and not having a relationship to that. So I've worked on this over the last, year and a half, maybe, in different ways. And it's gone from where I couldn't tell the story without weeping to being able to tell the story, and I feel the presence of the energy of that form of life, that that expression of life right here with me. Like my body's warm, right? I can feel, so it's like being able to hold these things in deeper and deeper ways. Now, most people can go through, like when they say time heals all wounds. No, that's a lie. Time doesn't heal the wound, right? Over time, we might be able to say it in a more monotone way. We might be able to
Suppress our feelings around it, our emotions around it, control
exactly
it. Yes.
control it,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But this is where this is alive in me, and I can feel it and be with it and not go into monotone, not bypass, not just, kind of check out or disembody as I'm experienced. I'm not dissociated. I'm not numb in any way. I can feel it and also express it, in a succinct way.
This was good. I was thinking about whoever that is. Go ahead and put your name in the chat, please. Let us know where you're listening in from.
Mhm.
And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to leave your questions. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Y'all who going to be listening, don't forget to subscribe and like and share, because this is the dynamic conversation. I was thinking today as I was driving, and as I was thinking about somatic healing, and I was thinking about, I grew up in church.
Mhm.
I grew up Pentecostal,
Mhm.
apostolic. And so one of the things I have learned is Pentecostalism and apostolicism is very close to traditional African spiritualism,
Mhm.
in terms of how we connect with God, in terms of our shout, we call it shouting or dancing in the spirit,
Mhm.
or getting
Mhm.
the Holy Ghost, or the
Mhm.
Holy Spirit is what we say now. We're much more
Yep.
eloquent today. We say
Yeah.
Holy Spirit. No, our praying and laying on of hands, of anointing,
That's
the
it.
anointing oil. All of those are all symbolic, as much as
Mhm.
that was transferred in the Western hemisphere in the name, or in under the guise of Western religion. And I was thinking about how Wade Noble said, when I first heard him, he said, people can't figure out how so much healing happens in our church, right?
Mhm.
Um, like what is it that is going on,
Mhm.
that we're able to conjure up. We don't like the word conjure, but conjure up the spirit in such a fashion
Yep.
that the Holy Spirit comes in and people are healed, knocked out, and the emotion of it all, the
That's right.
spirit of it all. That's what somatic healing is. So I'm sharing that with the audience to kind of give a parallel so you can understand, for those that will be listening, like, okay,
Mm.
what?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And those are, like when we look at like tenets of somatics, it is everything through the body, not excluding of the mind, where we have like a traditional medical model of therapy is like a talk therapy is pretty much mindset work only and less inclusive of the body. Somatics is a body-based approach that like the body includes the mind, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're not minds walking around with a body, we're a
Right.
body with a mind.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
and everything that happens to us happens to our bodies, to our being. And so when we're processing, right, we're looking at movement, we're looking at breath, we're looking at sound, we're looking at physiological signs, symptoms, expressions, etc. And you're absolutely right. I mean, that is what hands-on self-contact or contact with another with consent, obviously, right? Those are all pieces
Mm-hmm.
of what it is to work with the material in the body. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I like how you said also, we have a body and our mind, and so in our mind and our body and our spirit and our soul, and so what happens is it things get locked in. I want to, trapped in our body. You talked about the birthing of your son, which opens up. I wasn't gonna go back to that. Opens up the whole door to abortions and whatnot.
Mm.
And you know, well, maybe we should talk about it. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, it's not about whether abortions are good, bad, or indifferent. It is about the experience one has in the body, the physical
Mhm.
body,
Mhm.
um, and that energy being locked or either released or held, or even if there's feelings of guilt
Mhm.
and repression, that stuff manifests as illness, disease in our
That's it.
mind, in our thinking, in our existence. And what is part of the reason why, oh, wow, I didn't know we were going to go here. Part of the reason why we have repeated cycles that we have not been able to um, distract. And let's talk about, yeah, let's talk about that.
Well, and I love what you're saying. We can definitely, I'm happy to share my beliefs, thoughts, values on whatever topic. It might not agree with anybody else's here, but that's okay too, but whatever it is, right? What we have to look at is that we come out, our nervous system has different responses. We come into this world, with the exception of very, very few, even in some traumatic births, we come into what would be considered a down-regulated state, right? We come in with the parasympathetic, which
Mhm.
is our rest and digest, or it can go into our freeze response as well,
Mhm.
right? But we come in a rested, digested state. We learn everything else. We learn the fight response, we learn the flight response, all of those things in time as the brain matures and the nervous system matures and has capacity for these things. And when something happens to us, our brain stem, and there's a part of the brain called the diencephalon, and then the limbic system are all developed. And as the nervous system is developing, I don't want to get too brain sciencey here, but as these things develop, when something happens to us, we respond with a strategy.
Mhm.
So a baby who feels hunger pains in their body, what do? They cry.
Mhm.
When that need gets met because they cried, then it becomes something that they do to get their need met,
Exactly.
right?
Mhm.
This is what we would call a survival strategy or a conditioned tendency or a pattern. Now, as we evolve, our tendencies and our patterns are supposed to evolve too, but we are not disrupting patterns when they're no longer necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take the same example, right? A baby gets up, it grows up, and it starts crying for different things to get a need met. But then what? It's met with some other type of force. A parent that says, don't cry or I'll give you something to cry for. Or don't, whatever. And so then the body has to evolve that pattern into a different strategy.
Mm-hmm.
What happens over time, and Resmaa Menakem talks about this in great detail, is that it goes from a survival strategy into a habit, right? Because we're just doing it over and over. We develop, or it goes into a skill. We develop that as a skill. It becomes a habit, and then it becomes a part of our personality, where you're like, well, I've always shut down when somebody gets loud in the room, because my dad used to do it, right? But that is a strategy that goes on autopilot instead of us checking if it's actually necessary. Because the best response to somebody getting loud in a room isn't necessarily shutting down or fighting or freezing, right? But the body's system scans for threat 56 times per minute.
Mm-hmm.
And it deems within a millisecond what the best strategy is. But the reinforced strategies are going to come across as the best strategies as well. So again, not to get too sciencey with it, trying to keep it accessible, is that we are working with these patterns. And so when something happens, even if it's later in life, right, it's the same way that you might respond to a surprise as if it's an attack because you have that experience, when it's just a surprise party. Right? It's the conditioned tendency in the body based on history. So we have something that happens to us, and our strategy did or didn't work, and then we can overdevelop those patterns. And sometimes we're just doing them because we've always done them, right? It's our personality. That's how I act. When in fact it isn't. It's not how you came into this world. It's what you learned to do to keep yourself safe.
So when we talk about what we've learned to do to keep ourselves safe, and we talk about somatic healing, and we talk about, I think with all of that, and I think you were talking about the giving birth and in the trauma the body experiences through that process, that a woman goes through, and then you add to that other things that are not emotionally and spiritually healthy. What have you learned to do to support healing for yourself and for others that you work with?
Yeah, I think it all starts with awareness, right? Like we can't do anything about what we're not aware of. And so it's like starting to notice. It can be so subtle. Like I work with, let's say, somebody who's been in a car accident, right? It's a traumatic experience for them. And the body goes through, I'm holding on to the wheel, and my body wants to protect myself, but I have to hold on to the wheel or the accident could be worse, let's say. Well, then this person 3 months down the road, every time they go to get in their car on a rainy day, like that day, they can't breathe, or they have a panic attack, or their body starts to clam up or shut down, or they're gripping the steering wheel, or they can't drive at all. Right. So first it's the awareness that I don't know why this happened. Okay, let's start looking at unpacking. And we don't always have a complete memory. I'm just giving a very specific example here. But we start to work with symptoms, right? When did you first experience this? How long has this been going on? Do you remember a time that you didn't do this? Right? With a car accident, what we want to work with in undoing that is giving the body, the pattern is a way to avoid harm or danger or a lack of safety, etc. But sometimes the completion cycle gets thwarted. So in this experience, right, I got to hold on to the steering wheel. I'm thwarted from protecting myself. What we have to do, though, then is to go back through and complete that cycle of a defensive strategy where they are allowed to process that energy out of their body. So back to you talking about in the churches, when you see somebody throw their body back, or they hit their knees or their hands on, they're actually oftentimes, even unbeknownst to them, completing a defensive strategy that got locked in their body because they didn't get to complete the cycle of protecting themselves.
Which is
And
why it feels so it's a so listen, people, thank you for tuning in. Those of you that are tuning in, thank you. Go ahead and ask your questions. Let us know where you're checking in from, and make sure you subscribe, like, and share. So with that said, what that said is the body, the spirit, the soul has been so orchestrated to heal itself. And so even earlier when I talked about indigenous things that we have done, that we do, that we know, um, just we just know certain things is going to loosen us up, or help us to free us. However, what has happened, I think, oftentimes is there's still a lock-in, where we're not. You talked about the mind. We are not processing, and so we're doing some things, but we're still not truly releasing.
yeah. Yeah. And I think it's oftentimes, going back to what we did in the breath opening up this session, is that we are moving to do something to soothe rather than staying with long enough to move it all the way through.
There it is. Yes.
Right. So
Let's say that. Say that again.
Yeah. Yeah. We're often moving to, because we are organized. Our survival is dependent on, I mean, think way back to the earliest human beings, right? Anything that was uncomfortable was likely dangerous. So we're organized towards pleasure, comfort, all of those other things. Now it's been completely bastardized what comfort is, particularly in this country. That's another conversation. But when we come up to something that feels difficult or challenging or painful, right? Especially an emotion that we haven't been taught how to process through, we will move to soothe that for our comfort. Right? The problem is that it only almost works because we're not building the capacity to stay with it when we soothe it away. It's kind of like an off-ramp. I want to get to feeling good instead of I want to work with this so that I have a more resilient body to hold what I'm working with.
So I got a question here that came in on my phone. So they were listening. So the question is, so how do I move the energy of multiple abortions?
I would say take your time first and foremost, right? I would say starting to work with the symptoms that you're carrying in the body rather than going directly to the experience, because, right, you don't go into the center of the pain. You work the edges of the pain. I would say working with emotions like forgiveness, grief, self-trust, dialoguing with your body, dialoguing with this part of you that made those choices and went through those experiences, getting lots and lots of support. It's dependent. It's an individual experience, right? It's subjective to the person, but some somatic practices might actually be movement. It might be eliciting what's coming up. Like when you ask that question, whoever this person is, when you ask this question, how do I work with this material? What do you first notice happen in your body? What's the working theory about me saying this out loud or asking this question, right? Noticing if you feel connected to your body or dissociated from your body, if it feels numb, if it feels hot, if it feels cold, working with the what's in somatic experience, it's called SIBAM, right? Sensations, images, behaviors, emotions, and meaning making, any of those channels of intelligence in our body. And then moving to expand some of those feelings or emotions, like we did in the beginning, as a structural way, right? Wow, I'm feeling a deep sense of judgment coming up, let's say. Or I'm going to be judged. Okay, how do you feel that in your body? How do you notice that? And then seeing if we can spread that out so it becomes a little more tolerable. And then in the spaciousness of that, what's possible? What's the next layer that opens up, right? But movement, sounding, right? How does that emotion or feeling in my body sound? Giving it a voice, even if it's, animalistic or primal. That might
Or
be
screaming. One of the things, because the other thing that is said is, I don't. Where do I find the time to do this? I have too much I have to do.
Let me
And
tell
so
you
one of
what, healing is a full-time job, my friends. Healing is a whole full-time job. And I want to name here that there is a reason so many of us have locked and stored and stuck trauma in our bodies, because there isn't safe spaces to process it through. There isn't enough time to process it through, and to put ourselves in situations where we are vulnerable. Vulnerability isn't inherently dangerous, but our exposure while we're vulnerable can be dangerous. And so I also want to name, right, like, it gets to take the time that it takes. And that means if you're touching it for 2 minutes a day, you're doing more than you did, a
yesterday.
month ago or yesterday or
Exactly. Or
whatever.
yesterday.
Right. And
Exactly.
finding, I'll say appropriate spaces, whether that is a friend, a religious guide, I use accessibility options and sliding scales, and like finding somebody who can meet you and show up for you and doing the work, in those ways. We can't heal alone what happens interpersonally. And even if an abortion happened in your body, there was an interpersonal component to it, right? Either with someone or the absence of someone. And so it's, we heal in community, so finding
Safe
spaces
space.
yeah.
Healthy. I like to we call it healthy, safe, brave spaces.
Mm-hmm. And it
Because
is brave space, because it's not always safe, and safety is really relative.
yeah, I was going to say
Right.
safe spaces is such a buzz, a cliche thing right now. So we added the healthy part of it,
Yep.
and then brave spaces,
Yeah,
healthy, safe, brave spaces, so
that's
that you
right.
can undo that. And so, what I will say too, I want to add on to that. When I said the screaming, some of you may have done this, where you've been down riding on the freeway, driving in the middle of traffic, you
Just
roll
let
your
it
window
out.
down
Yeah.
and just start screaming.
Let it roll. Let it roll. Let it roll.
Let it roll.
I will
That
say,
is what. Mhm.
yeah, the only asterisk I put on that, as in the work that I do, when we work with like anger, rage, releasing in those ways, sometimes there is a lot pent up, and there are some nervous systems with activation, it doesn't release, but it amplifies. And
It's
so that's
true.
my only, it's like, I love a good primal sound. Like, I love a good scream. I scream in my car. I scream,
Yes.
if nobody's home and nobody next door is going to call the police. You know what I mean? Like, I'll
Yes.
just let it rip. I do it in breath work. I invite those like
Yes.
really primal things. But
Yes.
just be mindful, if that ups the ante for you, then there might be a different way. I love to, I've had people go out in nature before, and let's say there's like a nearby area that you can like dig a little hole, or even just lay on your belly and just silent scream into the earth, right? The earth will compost your anger and rage and use it for fuel to birth something else in this world. So really letting yourself let it out in the ways that are supportive for you. But yeah, I am a big supporter of primal screams.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What else would you like to leave with the audience? We are at 55 minutes.
Mm.
And so I want to give you an opportunity to share. You talked about why you got into this work. And before you do that, let me say this. share how you maintain. I know you, of course, obviously do a lot of the work for you within and with yourself, but
Mhm.
how you maintain. This is for those of us who are in this work, and what I
Mhm.
have found is we don't often take care of ourselves.
Mhm.
So share your
Yeah.
light on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a practice. And especially right now, because something that has always been stressed to me by my mentors and in my trainings is that the ramifications, the consequences of secondary or vicarious trauma are deeply impactful on our bodies, right? Because when something is happening to you, like I talked about those defensive strategies, that presupposes that it happened to me. But when we are hearing it from other people, it's not
Mhm,
like we're fighting off a perpetrator. That's their
mhm,
work, right? We're just a
mhm,
bystander and we're seeing
mhm,
it, we're hearing it. And so processing through secondary grief or secondary trauma or vicarious trauma is really a requirement of doing any kinds of this work. And that doesn't just mean that you're facility, it could be what you see in your communities, it could be what you're seeing every time you turn on the television or social media in our government right now.
mhm,
All of it, there's so much secondary trauma, and our body has a harder time processing it because there isn't a defensive strategy. Because it's like we are witnessing it, not experiencing it. If that makes sense.
mhm,
So
mhm,
I would say like my biggest commitment is to constantly and consistently getting my own work done, staying
mhm,
curious. Um, uh, I get professional sessions. I'm in accountability groups. I am
mhm,
in case consultations with my mentors all the time, going, here's what I'm walking with this client.
mhm.
How am I showing up? It's accountability in transformative justice spaces and showing up to do my work there. It's also rest as a devotional practice. It is
Yes.
connecting to my breath. It is nourishing my body as a wild act of defiance against this administration, right? It is daily and consistent working with how my body needs to be supported. And I don't always get it right? That my best friend who I mentioned passed away earlier in this. His birthday was Sunday a week ago, and I just I was cranky. I wasn't feeling good. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I was isolating, right? And I didn't sleep well as a result. And the next day I'm like, oh, you got some grief work to do, ma'am. This makes
Mhm,
sense, right? This makes
mhm,
sense. And
mhm,
so I committed to a devotional practice. I sat with his memory and our photos, and I wrote to him and I talked to him, and I let it crack me open again, you know,
mhm.
let that good cry
It,
out.
I love it. I love it. I love it. You
Mhm.
know, my mother birthday was this past week.
Mm,
And I always share with people, and she transitioned. It will be 16. I think it's 16 years this year, June
mm,
29th. But one of the things that I've often said, Tracy, um, the DNA knows. You don't have to
yeah.
be thinking about it. Your body
Oh,
knows.
yeah.
And it is it's I think Natalie says it most, she says it very well as well. You learn, it's a part of my journey. It's a
Mhm.
part of who I am now. It's not going anywhere. And
Yeah.
so the work that we get to do is ongoing. And then sometimes we use the word work as in labor,
Mhm.
as rather than the acceptance and the embracing, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
and not judging. One of the things I am learning to do is not judging myself when my body says, no, you
Yeah.
have to rest.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
just don't have, because what's starting to, what I notice, as I don't know if it's because I'm getting older or what, but what is happening is, honey, it starts shutting down.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say perimenopause, like moving towards menopause, perimenopause has shown me things about myself that I was like, well, you do have it in you, ma'am. Okay. All right. Here we
Okay.
are. You know, here we are. Here we are. And it
Exactly.
is, it's boundary work. It is saying, remembering that when we're saying no, that we're also saying yes to something else. And my body has never lied to me. The patterns in my body might lie, right? The defensive strategies might lie, but my body, my intuition, what my soul is here to do has never lied to me. Never.
Mhm.
And so I
And
prioritize that as
yeah.
a truth teller in my space.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
and learning to be okay with it. You said it in this administration. I have a friend that'll call. I said, "No, you already know. I listen to just enough to know what's going on, and then I back up out of it. I can't
Mm-hmm.
hang out there. No,
Mm-mm.
I can't. I just it's just ah,
Yeah.
you know you can't do it because of the intensity of it all. And so, with that said, any other final words you'd like to share with the audience?
I always say a couple of things. My catchphrases, right, is like take what works, leave what doesn't, stay curious about both, right?
I
What is
like
it?
it.
What is it that I don't like about that? What is it that I do like about that? Is that typical of me? Is there something I'm trying to learn here that I need to stretch and grow? Another is to go gently, right? Because a whole city couldn't handle the intensity of what people are going through at any point, particularly in this country's history, but in the world, right? And in the greater scheme of things. Um, and your nervous system, your body knows how to heal itself. It's getting your preconceived ideas or conditions from others outside of yourself that get in our way. And so really coming back to embody experience, right? Indwelled experience. There's like getting insight from the inside instead of everything outside of you, right? Those types of things. So, yeah, just go gently and let it take the time it takes.
Mhm. What is one of the most? I got another question. I'm sorry. Now, what is one of the most profound things you've seen in your sessions? And you can, and I want you to talk about your work and how they can connect with you as well.
I mean, I am in awe every day. To pick one would be near impossible, I think. But consistently, what I sit in reverence to is is people really learning and understanding that they are not defective, that there is nothing wrong. Like our systems are always responding appropriately to what it believes the response needs to be, whether it's threat or overwhelm, whatever. But this awakening of people, I will say, I work with a lot of couples too, and it's pretty magical to watch two human beings who come in and they're this way, back facing each other on the screen, like I'm only here because I have to be, to turning and doing some sort of like connective practice at the end. Individuals who have been brutalized or their body's been brutalized, being able to get out, not only trust themselves but start to trust other people in the world. The amount of times I wish I had $1 every time somebody said, I've never said this to anybody before, but here they are telling it, those deepest places inside them. And really just the willingness to keep trying. I sit in awe every day of people's willingness to persevere. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Grief is
Yeah.
not a bad thing. Loss is not a bad thing. It's
It's
learning how to,
not.
yeah, embrace it.
It's
Thank
not.
you
It's
so
all
much.
here. Yeah. And I have my website's uncontrollablyme.com. You can find me on Instagram. I've been less active on socials because with everything going on, it sometimes just feels so insignificant to get on there and post a meme or a link to, you know what I mean? It's like,
Mhm.
this is just too much, too much pain, too much travesty. And I do post like something called Soma Sundays on my Instagram and TikTok. And that's, Instagram is at uncontrollably_me. And then my TikTok is my name, or I think it also says at uncontrollably me as well. But I do post somatic practices. So you could just pick one. They're all in a highlight on my Instagram. And you could just pick one and try and see how your body responds to these different resource practices. Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was I
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed the conversation. I think it was dynamic. Um I appreciate your transparency, your openness and willingness to share your journey as
Mhm.
well as the journey of yours with others.
Mm.
Is so needed. We need that. We have to be able to come together and partner um, for this healing work that's ahead of us. And even, it's interesting because I'm starting to, everybody's talking about the healing. Yeah, just and I say, there's a lot. We have choices. We have
Yeah.
choices. Just be aware. Like you said, we have to make sure that we be aware. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for taking the time.
Absolutely. I just want to name it's two L's. I was trying to connect so that I could leave the comment in the box, but it's uncontrollably and two L's. The
Oh, I
first,
have
in
it.
case any uh, here.
Let
Oh,
me.
it's gonna let me do it now. I
Okay, good,
finally got access. I'll
good,
just
good,
drop
good.
that here, and also my email if anybody wants to connect that way.
Yeah. And then, because what I also want to, and I want to add you to we have a list of, that's perfect, a list of therapists, counselors, and things that we are adding to our roster to refer. So
Okay.
we'll talk to you a little further about that as well. So, but you got it, ladies and gentlemen. Tracy Holmeyer, you learned what somatic, did I say it right? Mhm.
Somatic healing. Yeah. 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 You
Y'all
got
know
it.
I'll botch up a word. Y'all know I'll do it. And so we say thank you for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate you. And we will hopefully we'll get to do some things together. I'm looking forward to possibly doing some things together in the future. Make sure
Yeah.
you subscribe, make sure you like, make sure you share. Go ahead and leave your comments even after this. Listen to what's being said. Let it um, marinate.
Mhm.
There was a lot of rich information that was shared tonight.
Mhm.
Again, thank you, and we will see you. Oh, next
Can I
week.
get yeah, and can
Yes,
I just say
yes.
I just want to thank you, Iris, for the space that you hold and showing up in this way, especially on nights like tonight where you didn't want to and you're caught by it, you're hooked by it,
Mhm,
and that willingness to show up and be a light, be a space,
mhm.
be an advocate in these spaces for people's wellness is really inspiring. So I just want to also say thank you to
Thank
you as
you.
well.
Thank
And
you. Thank you. Thank
it's
you.
it's so funny. I was flipping through your book just the other day, and I encourage everybody to get that as well.
Oh yeah, that's the breathe book. Actually, I have
Yeah.
a new updated version coming up. That's this one. I didn't even breathe.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah. Yeah.
workbook. We have a workbook that goes with. Thank you for mentioning that. And it's available on audio. So you can get that at irisinspires.com. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, everybody. Thank y'all. And we'll see. Join us next week as Dr. Linda will be with us sharing her experiences and learning the power of self-care after taking care of her parents. And then the following week will be our special Mother's Day with Dr. Jewel Diamond Taylor. And she will be especially for you parents who've lost a child. We're here for you. We care for you. And we want to make sure that we are supplying and supporting you in the areas of need as you journey through the process of caring for your loved ones and grief and loss. See you next week.